This podcast was written and created by Avi Melamed, Middle East intelligence analyst and founder of the Inside the Middle East Institute.
Imagine signing a major international agreement, right? Only to realize that, well, both sides are crossing their fingers behind their backs.
Right. It is a classic diplomatic illusion.
Exactly. So today we are taking you into the new U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding, but we are looking at it specifically through the lens of Arab media.
Which gives a very different perspective than what you might typically hear.
It really does. And as Egyptian commentator Sameh Rashid points out, and this is in a thorough analysis brought to us by Avi Melamed, both sides are claiming victory by telling exactly half the truth.
I mean, that is such an important distinction to make. When you look at Avi Melamed's breakdown of the Arab commentary, you quickly see that nobody in the region considers this MOU a historic breakthrough. They're overwhelmingly viewing it as a truce, or like an interim testing period.
Right. It is basically like hitting pause on a really tense movie. The action on the screen stops, you can catch your breath, but the actual plot is completely unresolved.
Yeah, but the problem with hitting pause is that the monster is still lurking in the background.
Wow, right.
And in this case, the monsters are the massive issues deliberately left off the table. Avi Melamed outlines exactly what is missing here. You have Iran's nuclear program, ballistic missiles, freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, and Hezbollah in Lebanon.
There is a massive list of omissions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By omitting these, regional observers see this not as a resolution at all, but just a postponement of very difficult decisions.
So if those core disputes are just frozen, how does the Arab world view the players themselves coming out of this?
Well, it shifts the focus entirely to perception.
Right, because if you were looking at this from the outside, you might assume it's just a stalemate. But Avi Melamed notes a distinct narrative where Iran is perceived as the victor simply because the regime survived the military confrontation.
Yeah, to understand why, you really have to look at the logic of asymmetric conflicts. In the Middle East, state actors are judged by their ability to achieve decisive victories. But a non-state or an asymmetric actor, they just have to survive to claim a win.
The bar is just that low.
It is. For Arab media commentators, the very fact that Washington is sitting at the negotiating table with Tehran, well, that is mathematical proof that Iran remains an indispensable regional power.
Which inevitably flips the script on how Israel is viewed in all this. Avi Melamed highlights a prominent narrative framing Israel as the, quote, psychological loser.
Yes, that is a very specific term they are using.
But I have to ask, based on Avi Melamed's analysis, is this an actual loss of Israel's regional intimidation factor, or is Arab media just aggressively searching for evidence that fits what they want to see?
Well, that is the crucial question to ask. Avi Melamed emphasizes that whether Israel's military power has tangibly degraded is almost beside the point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The fact that this narrative is blanketing the Arab media landscape, it shows a very real, intense search for any sign that Israel's regional dominance is cracking, particularly because they ultimately had to rely on American diplomatic intervention rather than a decisive military blow.
Right. And when that perception of power shifts, it sends shockwaves through local flashpoints. Take Lebanon, for example.
Absolutely.
According to Avi Melamed's analysis, Lebanon is the crucial first test of this new reality. The dynamic for you to watch is whether Hezbollah keeps its military autonomy or if this new framework creates actual pressure for them to disarm.
And for Lebanese analysts, that is not merely a border security issue. It is tied directly to the fundamental sovereignty of the Lebanese state.
Right. But the Palestinians have a totally different lens on this.
They do. If you shift focus to the Palestinian perspective, Avi Melamed notes they are asking a much more anxious question. They're basically asking, well, what does this mean for us?
Because they fear being entirely marginalized, I assume. While the global players are focused on maritime security in the Gulf or negotiating with a broader axis of resistance, the Palestinian issue risks getting pushed completely off the radar.
Exactly. And all of these localized anxieties, Lebanon sovereignty, Palestinian marginalization, they point to a massive shift in the broader strategic consensus.
Which Avi Melamed points out in his conclusion.
Right. He concludes that the old debate in the Arab world, the one about whether Iran could be isolated or contained, that is essentially over.
The conversation is completely pivoted. Now, the focus is entirely on how Iran will integrate into the Middle Eastern order, what limits will be placed on its proxies, and ultimately what price everyone else will have to pay for regional stability.
Yeah, it completely reframes how you have to analyze the Middle East going forward.
So to wrap up our deep dive today, we want to leave you with this exact observation from Avi Melamed. The U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding is not the end of the road. At most, it marks the beginning of a road shrouded in dense fog, with many of the most consequential questions still unanswered. The fighting may have paused, but the fundamental disputes that fueled it remain unresolved.
This podcast is made possible by supporters like you. ITME is an independent, nonprofit institute committed to apolitical, intelligence-based Middle East education.
To learn more, or to support our work, visit our website www.insidethemiddle-east.com.